The thermostat hangs in the hallway like a framed family portrait. White plastic, faintly yellowed at the edges, mounted exactly 5 feet above the hardwood floor that I paid to have refinished in May of 2019. I know the height because I measured it once. Old engineers measure things. We measure what we're allowed to touch and what we aren't. Don't adjust to Dad. That was Allison. Tuesday evening, 7:42 p.m. If we are being precise. I remember because the 6 o'clock news had just ended, and the weatherman said the temperature would drop to 43 overnight. 43. It's freezing in here, I said, standing in the hallway in my cardigan. The same gray one Margaret bought me for our 40th anniversary. She's been gone 6 years, but the sweater still smells faintly of cedar and something softer. Her perfume, maybe, or just memory. It's set to 68, Allison replied from the kitchen, where she was rinsing quinoa in a stainless steel colander that cost more than my first toolbox. That's perfectly reasonable. Perfectly reasonable. The house felt like a refrigerator with framed wedding photos. Mark, my son-in-law, didn't look up from his laptop at the dining table. The gas bill was $312 last month, he said. We can't keep cranking it up every time you feel a draft. The word has always amused me. I stood there for a moment, my finger hovering near the thermostat. 68 glowed in blue numbers. I could see my faint reflection in the plastic cover. Thin face, white hair combed straight back. A man who once wired entire municipal substations and now required permission to move 2 degrees upward. I'll put on another sweater, I said. That would help, Allison answered, already moving on to something else. We're just trying to stay within budget. Budget. I walked back to my room, the former guest bedroom at the end of the hallway, 12 by 14 feet. A twin bed, oak dresser, small desk with a banker's lamp. On the desk, my checkbook, a calculator, and a neat stack of bank statements secured with a paperclip. I sat down and opened the folder labeled Subsidy. It's a plain, manila folder. Nothing dramatic. Inside are printed confirmations from First National Bank. Automatic transfers of $516.67 on the 1st of every month. 12 months. Total. $6,200 per year. I set it up on January 2, 2020. I remember because that was the week Allison called me in tears. We're short on the escrow account, she had said. Property taxes went up, and the mortgage company recalculated everything. We're going to be $6,200 behind this year. How does that happen? I asked. It's complicated, Dad. Adjustable rates, insurance premiums, just bad timing. I had just sold the last of Margaret's jewelry that week. Nothing extravagant. Her gold bracelet, a pair of sapphire earrings. They brought in $8,900. I deposited the check on December 28, 2019. I can cover it, I told her. Just for this year, she said quickly. Just until we stabilize. Just until. That was 4 years ago. Every month since, $516.67 leaves my account and glides electronically into theirs. The memo line reads, escrow support. Support. I stared at the thermostat number in my mind and then at the figures on the paper in front of me. $6,200 a year. Over 4 years. That's $24,800. Add the $85,000 I wired on March 15, 2018 for their down payment. So I don't have to pay PMI. Dad is just smarter financially. Add the $24,300 for the kitchen renovation in July 2021. Quartz countertops. Soft close cabinets. The very same kitchen where quinoa now dripped in a designer colander while I negotiated for warmth. Total so far, $134,100. And yet I require authorization to touch the thermostat. I heard them laughing in the kitchen. The clink of dishes. The low hum of a dishwasher. Mark's voice explaining something about a client call. I have lived in this house since it was a foundation and framing. I chose the lot. I signed the builder's contract, though the deed for tax efficiency went into Allison and Mark's names. That was their accountant's suggestion in 2018. Estate planning, Dad, Mark said. You don't want probate issues. Probate issues. I was a widower with 2 children and a modest pension. My estate was not the Vanderbilt fortune, but I signed, because that's what fathers do When daughters cry over escrow shortages. I closed the folder and leaned back in my chair. The baseboard heater ticked softly as it cooled. 68 degrees. Margaret used to keep our old house at 72. Life is short, she'd say, patting across the kitchen in her slippers. I refused to be cold in my own home. My own home. The phrase lodged in my throat like a fishbone. At 9:15 p.m., Allison knocked once and entered without waiting. "Dad, can we talk for a minute?" She sat on the edge of the bed, smoothing invisible wrinkles from her yoga pants. "We just need you to be mindful," she began. "Utilities, groceries, it all adds up. We're carrying a big mortgage." "How big?" I asked quietly. She blinked. "What?" "The mortgage. How big is it now?" "About $612,000, she said. "Why?" I nodded slowly. The original loan in 2018 had been $530,000. Rates, refinancing, equity withdrawals for renovations. I had seen enough bank statements on the kitchen counter to guess. "And the escrow shortage this year?" I asked. "It's manageable," she said. "Why are you asking?" "No reason," I almost said. Instead, I smiled. A small, careful smile. "I was just thinking about numbers." She relaxed, misreading my tone. "Don't worry about that stuff, Dad. We've got it handled." Got it handled. After she left, I stood up and walked back into the hallway. The thermostat glowed in the dim light. 68. I did not touch it. Not that night. But I went back to my desk, opened my laptop, and logged into First National Bank. I clicked on automatic transfers. There it was. Escrow support, $516.67. Recurring monthly, no end date. No end date. I hovered the cursor over the edit button. My finger trembled, not from age, but from something sharper. They told me not to touch the thermostat. So I began considering what else exactly I was allowed to adjust. If you believe older voices still matter, support this channel with a like and a subscription. I did not cancel the transfer that night. I am not an impulsive man. 47 years working in municipal utilities teaches you one thing above all others. Never shut off the main valve without knowing exactly which pipes you're about to dry out. Instead, I printed everything. On Wednesday, February 12, 2025 at 6:18 a.m., while the house was still wrapped in that thin, resentful silence before coffee, I sat at my desk and ran transaction histories from January 2018 to present. The printer hummed. Page after page slid into the tray like quiet accusations. March 15, 2018. Wire transfer. $85,000. Memo. Down payment. I remember standing in the bank that morning. A young teller named Brianna had looked at me over the counter. "That's a substantial transfer, Mr. Whitaker," she said. "It's for my daughter's house," I answered. She smiled the way young people smile at sentimental old men. "That's very generous." Generous? I had sold my lake cabin for $112,000 2 weeks earlier. Margaret and I bought it in 1992 for $48,000. We spent 20 summers there, fishing off the dock, burned hot dogs, her paperback novels stacked on the wicker table. I sold it so Allison wouldn't have to throw money away on private mortgage insurance. Next page, July 3rd, 2021, ACH transfer, $24,300, memo, kitchen remodel loan payoff. That one had been Mark's idea. "It's not even about luxury," he told me, sitting exactly where he now works on his laptop. "It's about resale value. We're building equity." Equity. I've noticed that word only travels in one direction. The old laminate countertops had been perfectly functional. I'd installed them myself with a level and a careful bead of adhesive. But they wanted quartz, calicataleza. I believe it was called. I know because I still have the invoice from Stonecraft Surfaces dated June 14, 2021. $18,750 for fabrication and installation. $5,550 for cabinetry upgrades. Total, $24,300. I had written a check for my savings account at 9:03 a.m. on July 3rd. It cleared on July 6th. They toasted the new kitchen with champagne that night. "Couldn't have done it without you, Dad," Allison said, raising her glass. I believed her. Then came the folder's steady rhythm. January 2nd, 2020, automatic transfer established. $516.67 monthly. 12 entries per year. 2020, $6,200. 2021, $6,200. 2022, $6,200. 2023, $6,200. 2024, $6,200. Total escrow support to date, $31,000. The word support has a gentle sound to it, like a hand on your shoulder. It does not sound like siphon. By 7:05 a.m., the stack of paper on my desk was nearly half an inch thick. I aligned the edges carefully and clipped them together. When I walked into the kitchen, Allison was spreading almond butter on toast. Mark was scrolling through his phone. "Morning," I said. "Morning," they echoed. The thermostat read 67. "Did it drop overnight?" I asked lightly. Mark shrugged. "Probably the draft by the back door." I poured myself coffee. Black. "I've taken it that way since 1974. "Remind me," I said, stirring slowly, "how much are property taxes this year?" Allison froze for half a second. "Why?" Curiosity. "About $9,800, she said. "Insurance went up too. That's why the escrow's tight." "Tight," I repeated. Mark finally looked up. "We're managing it." I nodded. "Of course." After breakfast, I carried my stack of papers back to my room and did something I should have done years ago. I opened a spreadsheet. Column A, date. Column B, description. Column C, amount. Column D, running total. By 10:42 a.m., the number at the bottom read, $140,100. That figure does not include birthday checks, or the $12,000 I lent Mark in September 2019 when his startup hit a temporary liquidity issue. He repaid $3,000 of that. The remaining $9,000 sits in a drawer labeled temporary. Temporary is a beautiful word. It excuses almost anything. Around noon, I stepped out into the hallway to stretch my legs. The house smelled faintly of roasted vegetables and the citrus cleaner Allison uses on the counters. I heard their voices in the den. Low, casual. "He doesn't really understand how expensive things are now," Mark was saying. "I know," Allison replied. "He grew up in a different economy. He thinks $300 gas bills are dramatic." They laughed softly. "He means well," she added. "But sometimes it feels like we're subsidizing him, you know? Groceries, utilities. Subsidizing him." The words settled over me like frost. I stood very still. Mark chuckled. "If we didn't keep things tight, he'd have the heat at 75. "I'm serious," Allison insisted. "Retirement income isn't what it used to be. We can't carry extra weight." Extra weight. I walked back to my room before they could see me in the hallway, closed the door, sat down. On my desk, the spreadsheet glowed. $140,100. I opened my online banking again and clicked into the details of the automatic transfer. There it was. Escrow support, next transfer. March 1st, 2025, $516.67. Beneath it, in smaller blue letters, modify, skip, cancel. My cursor hovered over modify. I thought about Margaret's hands on the thermostat dial in our old house. "Life is short," she would say. I thought about being told to put on another sweater in a house whose foundation I financed. I thought about the word subsidizing. At 1:17 p.m., I clicked modify. Not cancel. Not yet. I changed the amount from $516.67 to $0. Effective April 1, 2025. The system asked, "Confirm change to recurring transfer?" I read the question twice. Then I clicked confirm. The screen refreshed. Escrow support, $0. Effective 04/01/2025. I leaned back in my chair and listened to the faint hum of the HVAC system pushing out its careful, economical air. They told me not to touch the thermostat. I hadn't, but I had just adjusted something far more precise. I did not tell them in March. That would have been theatrical. And I've never cared much for theater unless it involves consequences. The confirmation email from First National arrived at 1:19 p.m. Subject: Recurring transfer modification confirmed. Effective date: April 1st, 2025. New amount, $0. I printed it and placed it in the manila folder behind the spreadsheet. Paper has weight. Digital things feel reversible. Ink feels final. For the rest of February, I behaved exactly as before. I complimented Allison's roasted Brussels sprouts. I nodded when Mark complained about interest rates. I put on a second sweater when the thermostat hovered at 67. I paid my $1,200 monthly contribution for groceries and utilities on the 28th, as I always do, via Zelle at 8:04 a.m. I am not unreasonable, but I also scheduled an appointment. March 6, 2025.10:30 a.m. Henderson & Klein, Attorneys at Law, Suite 402, Brick Building on Jefferson Avenue. I wore a navy blazer and the brown leather shoes Margaret insisted I keep polished even in retirement. The receptionist offered me coffee in a paper cup. I declined. My stomach was already tight enough. Mr. Klein was 42, perhaps 43. Trim beard. Crisp white shirt. He shook my hand firmly. "What can I help you with, Mr. Whitaker?" I handed him the folder. "I'd like clarity," I said. He spent 20 minutes reviewing the documents. Wire confirmations, remodeling invoices, the escrow transfer records. Occasionally, he raised his eyebrows. Occasionally, he made a small humming sound. "You transferred $85,000 as a gift?" he asked. "Yes." "And the $24,300 for the kitchen?" "Also a gift." "And the $6,200 annually?" "Originally temporary. No formal contract." He leaned back in his chair. "Do you reside in the property?" "Yes." "Are you on the deed?" "No." He folded his hands. "Legally speaking, Mr. Whitaker, the large sums you provided, absent written agreements, would likely be classified as gifts. Recovering them would be difficult." I nodded. "I expected that." "And the monthly $6,200? That's a voluntary, recurring transfer. You can stop it at any time." I said. He smiled slightly. "Then what's your concern?" I hesitated. "They believe," I said slowly, "that I am financially dependent on them." "Are you?" I slid a separate statement across his desk. Savings account balance as of March 1, 2025. $412,870. Brokerage account. $186,440. Monthly pension. $3,900. Social Security. $2,180. I have always been careful. Mr. Klein's eyebrows lifted again. "You are not dependent," he said. "No," I replied. "I'm not." He tapped the folder. "Do they know this?" "No." "Do you want them to?" There it was. I thought about the thermostat, about being told I was extra weight, about subsidizing him. I said carefully, "to ensure that if my living situation changes, I am protected." He nodded. "In that case, we should draft a simple occupancy agreement. If you're contributing $1,200 monthly, we formalize it as rent. That protects you from being characterized as a guest." "Guest?" I repeated. "Yes. Also, we should update your will. Right now, your daughter is primary beneficiary." "She is." "Given the financial history, you may wish to consider adjustments." "Adjustments?" On the drive home, I did not turn on the radio. The March sky was the color of unpolished steel. I felt neither rage nor triumph, only a quiet, tightening clarity. That evening, Allison brought up the gas bill again. "It was $298 this month," she said, slicing chicken at the counter. "Better than January, but still high." "Inflation," Mark muttered. I chewed slowly. Out of curiosity, I said, "How much do you allocate monthly for the escrow shortfall now?" Allison frowned. "Why?" "Because I'd like to understand the household finances if I'm contributing." Mark exchanged a glance with her. "We've got it covered," he said. "You don't need to stress about that." "I'm not stressed," I replied evenly. "I'm informed." Silence lingered for a few seconds, longer than comfort allows. Later that night, at 9:02 p.m., my phone buzzed with an email from First National. Upcoming transfer reminder. Escrow support. $516.67 scheduled for March 1, 2025. The last one. I let it process. On March 1st at 12:03 a.m., the final $516.67 left my account. Total escrow support since inception. $31,516.67. I updated the spreadsheet. $140,616.67. Round numbers are cleaner. Reality rarely is. March passed quietly. No one mentioned escrow shortages. No tears. No dramatic appeals. The heat remained at 68. On March 24th, I received a letter from Henderson & Klein with draft documents attached. Updated will health care proxy revision. And a simple rental acknowledgement stating, I pay $1,200 monthly in exchange for occupancy of the first floor bedroom and shared common areas. Professional. Clinical. Signed in blue ink on March 26th at 11:14 a.m. I placed copies in my desk drawer. Then I waited. April 1st fell on a Tuesday. At 8:17 a.m., while Allison blended something green and expensive in the kitchen, I sat at my desk and opened my banking app. Escrow support. $0 transferred. No alert would go to them. No siren. Just absence. Financial systems are mercilessly calm when they change. At 10:42 a.m., I heard Allison's voice from the kitchen. Mark, a pause. Why didn't the escrow transfer hit? My name was not mentioned. Not yet. I closed my laptop and folded my hands on the desk. They told me not to touch the thermostat. I had not. But on April 1, 2025, at precisely midnight, I turned off the $6,200 a year subsidy. And I was finally warm. Mark, Allison's voice carried a sharp edge that did not belong to Tuesday mornings. I heard the refrigerator door close, then the shuffle of papers. She keeps their mortgage statements in a ceramic bowl shaped like a lemon. Decorative anxiety. I'm looking at the account, she said. The escrow support didn't come through. There it was. Mark's chair scraped against the hardwood. What do you mean didn't come through? It's not there. It's always there on the first. I closed my desk drawer slowly and stepped into the hallway. The thermostat glowed 68, as loyal and indifferent as ever. They were both standing at the kitchen island. Mark with his phone in his hand. Allison with her laptop open, eyes narrowed at the screen. Morning, I said. They both looked up. Dad. Allison began too casually. Did you happen to change something with the bank? I modified a recurring transfer, I replied. Mark blinked. Modified how? I set it to 0. The blender, still dirty from whatever green mixture had been inside it, sat like a silent witness between us. Allison laughed once, short, disbelieving. You're joking. I don't joke about money. Mark's jaw tightened. That $516.67 covers the escrow shortfall. We talked about this. Yes, I said. In January 2020. It was temporary. Allison straightened. Dad, property taxes didn't magically go down. I'm aware. Then why would you just stop it without saying anything? I folded my hands in front of me. Calm. Precise. Because for 4 years I've contributed $6,200 annually to a mortgage I am not on, for a house I do not legally own, while being reminded that I cost too much in heating. Silence. Mark exhaled sharply. This is about the thermostat. It's about arithmetic, I said. Allison's face flushed. You live here. You use utilities. You eat the food. And I pay $1,200 a month toward those things, I replied evenly, which totals $14,400 a year, on top of the $6,200. Mark stared at me. You've never framed it like that. I never needed to. Allison pushed her laptop toward me. Look at this. Without that transfer, the escrow account goes negative by July. The bank will increase our monthly payment. Then adjust, I said. With what? She snapped. Do you think we have piles of cash sitting around? I did not answer that immediately. Instead, I walked back to my room and returned with a folder. Not the old manila one. The newer, thicker one from Henderson & Klein. I laid it on the island. What's that? Mark asked. Documentation. Allison's eyes flicked between us. Dad, don't do this. I already have. I opened the folder and slid the spreadsheet toward them. March 15th, 2018. $85,000. Down payment. Allison's lips parted. July 3rd, 2021. $24,300. Kitchen remodel. Mark's hand curled slightly against the counter. January 2020 through March 2025. $31,516.67. Escrow support. The numbers lay there in black and white. No emotion, no adjectives. Total at the bottom. $140,616.67. I did not include birthday checks. I added quietly. Or the $9,000 remaining from your startup loan, Mark. His face went pale. Allison whispered, "Why are you doing this?" "Because last month," I said, keeping my voice level, "I overheard you refer to me as extra weight, as someone you were subsidizing." Her head jerked up. "You were listening?" "I was walking to the bathroom," I said. "In the house, I helped finance." Mark rubbed his forehead. "We didn't mean it like that." "How did you mean it?" No one answered. The refrigerator hummed. A car passed outside. Ordinary sounds. In an ordinary kitchen built with my money. Allison's eyes grew glassy. "So this is punishment?" "No," I said. "It's correction." Mark's voice hardened. "You can't just pull support and expect everything to stay stable." "Correct," I replied. "Things will adjust." "Adjust how?" he demanded. "You might refinance without pulling equity for cosmetic upgrades," I suggested. "You might reduce discretionary spending. You might raise the thermostat 1 degree, less dramatically." Allison stared at me as if I'd become someone unfamiliar. "I thought family helped each other," she said softly. "They do," I agreed. "But help implies gratitude and proportion." Mark pushed the spreadsheet back toward me. "What exactly are you threatening?" "I'm not threatening anything." I slid another document across the island. A signed rental acknowledgement, dated March 26, 2025. "I am formalizing my $1,200 monthly contribution as rent," I said. "If my presence here is financial strain, I need legal clarity." Allison's voice cracked. "You went to a lawyer?" "Yes." The word landed heavier than the numbers. "For God's sake, Dad," Mark said, anger creeping in. "We're not your enemies." "Then stop treating me like an expense line." The room went still. After a long moment, Allison spoke, quieter now. "We were under pressure," she said. "Rates went up. Insurance went up. Everything feels tight." "I understand pressure," I replied. "I paid a mortgage at 14% interest in 1983, without assistance." Mark looked away. "All I asked," I continued, "was to adjust 2 degrees in a house I invested $140,000 into, and I was told to put on a sweater." Allison covered her mouth. I picked up a folder. "The subsidy is off," I said, "as of April 1st. Mark's voice was low. "And if we can't make the payments?" I met his eyes steadily. "Then you'll do what homeowners do when numbers stop working." The implication hung there, heavy and unsaid. "Sell. Downsize." "Correct." I turned and walked back toward my room. In the hallway, I paused by the thermostat. 68. I raised it to 70. No one stopped me. For the first time in 4 years, no one said a word. The temperature in the house rose to 70 that morning and stayed there. No one touched the thermostat after that. But something else shifted. You can feel it when a structure begins to settle unevenly. Small cracks. Hairline at first, then audible. A house tells you when it's under strain. So do people. The first bank notice arrived on April 18th. I did not open it. It wasn't addressed to me. It lay on the kitchen island beside a bowl of lemons and a stack of unopened credit card envelopes. Allison stared at it for a long time before sliding it into a drawer. By May, the tension had weight. Conversations shortened. Doors closed more firmly than necessary. Mark took more calls in the garage. Allison's voice acquired a brightness that felt rehearsed. On May 27th at 6:43 p.m., I heard the words clearly from the dining room. "They're recalculating the escrow," Allison said, her voice tight. "The new payment starts in July." "How much?" Mark asked. "An extra $742 a month." Silence. "That's almost $9,000 a year," he muttered. "Almost $9,000. I buttered my toast carefully. They tried to stretch it. They canceled a weekend trip. Mark mentioned selling one of his watches. Allison returned 2 dresses I'd seen hanging in the hallway days earlier. But numbers are stubborn. On June 15th, I came home from my morning walk to find them sitting at the kitchen table together. No laptops, no phones, just paper. Allison looked up. "We need to talk." I set my hat on the hook by the door and sat across from them. Mark spoke first. His voice was controlled, but thin at the edges. "We can't carry the house at this payment level." I nodded once. "We've looked at refinancing," Allison continued. "But with current rates, it's worse. and there's not enough equity without paying off the kitchen loan balance. I did not mention that the kitchen loan would not have existed without the remodel I funded. So, Mark said, clearing his throat, we're considering listing the house. The word landed with the quiet inevitability of gravity. Listing. I looked around the kitchen. The quartz counters, the pendant lights, the farmhouse sink that cost $1,200 on its own. When? I asked. Late July, Allison said. If we're lucky, maybe we can get $720,000. After fees, maybe enough to clear the mortgage and start smaller. Start smaller. I folded my hands. That seems prudent. Allison flinched at the calmness of my answer. Dad, she said softly, if you just kept the transfer. No, I replied, not raising my voice. If you had managed within your means, we would not be here. Mark's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. The real estate sign went up on July 3, 2025, exactly 4 years to the day after I wrote the check for the kitchen. White post, red lettering, a phone number in bold black print. I stood at the window and watched the agent hammer it into the ground. The house looked different immediately, less permanent, more exposed, like a secret had been dragged into daylight. Showings began that weekend. Strangers walked through the hallway where I once measured thermostat height. They admired the open concept layout. They complimented the natural light. One woman ran her hand across the quartz and said, "Beautiful upgrade." Yes, I thought. It was. On July 21st, they received an offer. $705,000. Allison cried in the bedroom. Mark accepted the next morning. Closing date, August 29th, 2025.10:00 a.m. 2 days before closing, Allison came into my room. She sat on the edge of my twin bed like she had months earlier, but something in her posture had changed. We'll be moving into a townhouse, she said. 3 bedrooms. Smaller yard. I nodded. There won't be space for everyone, she added carefully. There it was. I reached into my desk drawer and handed her an envelope. Inside was a cashier's check for $50,000. Her eyes widened. What is this? A return of what I can afford, I said. Not because I owe it, but because I choose to. Tears filled her eyes. Dad, we don't. I am not your subsidy, I said gently. And you are not my landlord. She stared at the check. You're not coming with us, she whispered. No, I said. I had already signed a lease on a small 2-bedroom cottage across town. $1,450 a month. Paid 1 year in advance. Fully mine. On August 29th, I did not attend the closing. I packed my books, my radio receiver, Margaret's cardigan, and the framed photograph of our lake cabin before it was sold. As I loaded the last box into my car, I walked into the hallway one final time. The thermostat read 68. I adjusted it to 72. Not for warmth, for memory. Then I stepped outside. The sign had already been removed. The lawn looked ordinary again, as if nothing had happened, as if $140,616.67 had never flowed quietly into its foundation. Allison hugged me in the driveway. Mark shook my hand. Take care, Dad, he said. I will, I answered. I drove away slowly, not looking back. In my new cottage, the thermostat sits lower, closer to eye level. 72 degrees feels appropriate. I no longer subsidize anyone. And for the first time in years, when I turn the heat up, no one tells me to put on another sweater.